right, you guys, welcome back to What the Frank Sports. This is your boy Lee. I'm here with my co-host Eric. Chris, he has a man of multiple names. We'll go with Chris for now. Um, anyway, what I want to do is I just want to thank you guys, everybody who has liked the page and subscribed and commented on the page. We really do appreciate you guys. So this is something that we like to do in our off time, talk about sports. So we're trying to build this page up, build this brand, build our channel. And so every single like, every single subscription, every single comment helps. And we really do enjoy talking sports with you guys as well. So we appreciate that. One thing that we wanted to talk about was the BCS bowl games that happened last night. Notre Dame. For you guys that don't know, I'm a Notre Dame fan. I'm a huge Notre Dame fan. Has always been since I can remember. But I know a lot of people have issues with the way Notre Dame seems to perform in the bowl games. And so I know Chris has some thoughts on that. Just real quick, the score last night was 31-14. Alabama ended up beating Notre Dame. It really wasn't a good game. But let's hear Chris's thoughts on the Notre Dame game. Go ahead, Chris.
So thank you, Lee, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah,
Yesterday was the New Year's bowl games, and Lee is absolutely right. We're excited to be talking about the Notre Dame-Alabama game today. I want to start off by saying I thought Notre Dame had an excellent year. They only lost 2 games on the season. The first game to Clemson, and then last night to Alabama. Roll Tide. Now, when watching and analyzing that game last night, I do feel like it was a bad matchup for the Fighting Irish. I mean, Alabama, their defensive tenacity has been amazing all year. They've been dominating teams with a high point spread. And they really seemed to capitalize every time they had an opportunity. Notre Dame would move the ball occasionally, but they just couldn't punch it in. They even missed a field goal during the game last night.
Yeah,
and versus a team like Alabama, you have to capitalize on every opportunity that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was to be expected. Notre Dame has underperformed in bowl games. One bright spot for the Fighting Irish is a young sophomore running back by the name of Kyron Williams. He's a sophomore, ACC Player of the Year, but he'll be back next year. But he's a prime time player. He had over 100 yards in the game last night. But I just want to tell you why Notre Dame is overrated when it comes to these bowl games. In 2018, the last time they were in the college football playoff, they lost to Clemson 30-3. Straight facts, homie. And then in 2013, the last time they played for the BCS championship game, I believe that team, they had Manti Te'o and several NFL prospects rated the #1 team in the country. They lost to Alabama 42-14. So overall, when it comes to Notre Dame, I'm going to say, don't believe the hype. So I'm going to turn it over to my man, Lee.
Yeah.
I know he's a Notre Dame fan. I want to hear your perspective.
All right, so I just want to respond to both of those games. So in 2018, we did lose to Clemson 30-3, but Clemson was head and shoulders above everybody else. As a matter of fact, Alabama lost to Clemson in the championship game by a wider margin than Notre Dame lost to them. And so not only did they blow us out that year, they blew Alabama out that year as well, which is that's pretty impressive. And that's where we'll put Trevor Lawrence on the map. As far as 2012, and the game was in 2013, what ended up happening that year was our best player, Manti Te'o, his mind wasn't really at the game because, he was dealing with the loss of Lene Kakua. If you guys don't know, that was his girlfriend who had died during the middle of the year. And so he was dealing with that. And then right before the bowl game, he found out she didn't even exist. And
it was a catfish.
Yeah, he was catfished. So his mind was somewhere else. And so that's, what ended up happening in that bowl game. But I would like to say one thing, though, Chris, because a lot of people, they do talk about Notre Dame. I got 2 points. When you look at the last 10 years, Notre Dame has been a top-tier team. You have Alabama, you have Clemson, and you have Ohio State. Those three teams are head and shoulders above. The last 10 years have been above everybody else. Right below them has been Oklahoma and Notre Dame. No one else in college football has been on Notre Dame and Oklahoma's level and those other three schools' level. So you got the 1A, the one tier, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and then you got the second tier, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and then you got everybody else. So really, the only people that could really talk trash in my book is people from Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson. If all these other people, they're hating on Notre Dame, well, you know what they could do is get their team together so they can make the BCS championship or the BCS playoffs. Because honestly, this year there's nobody else who was more deserving. You had Texas A&M, and then you had Cincinnati. Cincinnati was undefeated, but then if they would have won their conference championship, they're a smaller school. They had a real close game against in their conference game against a weak team, and then they end up losing their bowl game to Georgia, who was a bunch of scrubs this year. Shout out to Adrian. They were a bunch of scrubs this year. And then you had Texas A&M. They were also a one-loss team, but their one loss was to Alabama. They let Alabama put up over 50 points. They got a 50-burger put up against them. So they weren't more deserving. And Notre Dame had a big win against Clemson, even though Trevor Lawrence wasn't there. We understand that. But their resume, North Carolina, some other schools, was a lot better than Texas A&M.
I agree with your assessment for the most of the part, but I think one team you can add to that second tier is LSU. They just recently went undefeated, maybe the best college football season in history last year. How could you forget about them? The last time that Notre Dame won a national championship was 1988. Straight facts, homie. So what I'm telling you is LSU Tigers have been relative in the last 10 years. Every once in a while, they'll have a great season and they'll upset Alabama and be in the title contention.
Nah.
So what are your thoughts on LSU Tigers?
Okay, so first off, yes, Notre Dame's last official championship was in 1988. It should have been in 1993. I know, still a long time ago, but they got cheated out. That's a story for a different time. LSU hasn't been as relevant as Oklahoma and Notre Dame. They've won a title last year in undefeated, a great season. But if you look at the last 10 years, they've been they've been an average team. They haven't really, like a lot of those, they had that championship run, and then they had a bunch of mediocre seasons added in the last decade. And so even with that championship, they're not more relevant than Oklahoma or Notre Dame. And I thought you said Washington was good earlier.
Hey, Washington has been a team that has been performing on a regular basis over the last 4 or 5 years. So I do have to give the Pac-10 some love. And I just want to say this: when it comes,
are they on their level? Are they a top tier team?
I would say that they're maybe the tier right below. They're in Auburn's category, so they're right below Auburn and UCF. So they're right below the second tier that you named, Notre Dame, and what was the other team?
Oklahoma.
I would say they're right below that.
Washington has been a mediocre Pac-10 team. They're a mediocre team in a mediocre conference. Hopefully we don't lose Pac-10 fans. We're still building the channel, so we ain't got a lot of fans yet. But hopefully Pac-10 fans keep coming. Although in football, it's a trash conference.
Absolutely.
You guys feel free to correct me though in the comments.
I do want to add one thing. What do you think about Coach Brian Kelly? Over his career, he has a 67% win percentage, which is pretty good. But when you look at the other coaches like Dabo and Nick Saban, he's got to do better.
Yeah, when you're comparing them to the Bama and Clemson, he does have to do better if he wants to get this monkey off his back that he can't coach in big games. And this is a Notre Dame fan. He does seem to struggle coaching in big games, so he has to get over that hump if he wants to be included in that level. But that's also Dabo and Nick Saban are the once in a lifetime coaches as far as their production goes. I mean, you look, Brian Kelly is better than any other coach in the nation, including Ed Ogeron, who just won a national championship at LSU, or Who's some other coaches? Jim Harbaugh, Ryan Daly. I mean, it's Ohio State, so he is better than them right now. But Ryan Daly, I think he might end up getting them because his team is going to perform. Ohio State gets athletes. That's why they dominate the Big Ten year in and year out. But Brian Kelly, he has to perform better in the bowl games in order to get the monkey off his back. And he's 6-6 in the last 10 years, or in his career at Notre Dame. He's 6-6, which isn't terrible for bowl games. 500. Oklahoma is also 500. Clemson is 9-6, so they're a little bit better. But for the type of bowl games that when you're going to the BCS playoffs, and those are the games that you're losing, but then the other games you end up blowing teams out like last year. Take it with, like I said, they're not on Alabama and Clemson's level, and he has to start winning some big games. He has to, but he is better than 96% of the college coaches today.
I agree with your assessment. I have two final thoughts for Notre Dame. The first final thought is kudos to the Fighting Irish and Ian Book for a great season. And Ian Book, what a great career. Man, your win percentage was amazing. I know you're going to go on to the NFL and do successful teams. The second thing I want to say is for the Fighting Irish, I think your future is bright with Kyron Williams. But as far as the college football playoffs, overrated. It's not the 5-5 record. It's how they lose in big games.
That's a fair point. I would say tell us in the comments if you guys think Notre Dame is overrated, but I feel like it's going to be overwhelmingly Notre Dame is overrated. Even though I don't think they're overrated, go ahead and let me know. Did I make any good points today? Please, I had to make some good points as far as, I got to defend my team, Notre Dame. So let me know, or if I'm way off and you agree with Chris that they're overrated. I feel like I'm going to get killed on this one. But let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys, and Happy New Year. Notre Dame fans know what it is. We're not Cowboys fans. We know when our team doesn't perform.